Here.
King.
Here.
Calder.
Here.
Lishos.
Here.
Lehman.
Here.
Monahan. Here. Mosier.
Here.
Osborne.
Here.
Dahl.
Here. Please stand for the invocation. Today, may we be open to others' ideas and beliefs, respectful of our differences, not threatened by them. May we grow in understanding of our motives, knowing that people often act out of their own fears. May we be a force for replacing fear with insight, helping us all to be patient and kind as we talk. Strength, real strength, can always find compromise, working together. May we find a common ground, enable us to move forward with a shared purpose. May we see what is truly important and unite us, focusing on that to banish roadblocks of ego and fear. Today, may we be open to others' ideas and beliefs. Please face the flag and pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The minutes of the October 1st meeting have been distributed and stand approved unless someone would like to offer a correction.
Do I have my reports out?
I have it right here too.
Thank you.
I just got it a minute ago. Standard rules, I do not have that. I don't believe
Standing rules.
you have the standard, no, the paper we usually sign away, standard rules.
Is that the airplane?
He made an airplane there.
I don't have it.
I didn't get it, so I don't touch it.
You got it? Did you sign it?
Yeah, I did sign it, true.
You signed it? I did not have it.
Well,
5 minute recess.
I'm supposed to sign.
What was that second? No.
Those are my documents and no, that's what we take those in. It started with Tom.
Started with Tom, yeah, I don't see it either. I don't see it.
Do you remember signing?
No, I don't.
Well, I see. I need to see,
Yeah, the 5 of us usually sign.
you know what, if I can just get you all to just sign this. That's $30. And then
Everybody or just?
motion to waive.
This is all stuff that I got in from do.
Okay.
This is what I.
Okay, so the board has audited the claims in the amount of $1,503,442.83 and recommend that they be audited and allowed for the amounts claimed. Anita.
Need a motion to move that. Brian, second by Dick. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. With us today we have Christy.
Larry, one more thing. I need a motion then to the report of the rules and legislation. We need a motion to authorize waiving the rules to allow action on any late resolutions. If I can just get a motion. Brian?
Make a motion to waive the regular rules to accept late resolutions.
Moved by Brian, second by John. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Okay. Good to go.
All right, back on track. With us today we have Christy Andrus Nakano. Christy has been working with the hospital on their 5-year strategic plan. And with that, Ryan and I felt she would be a good choice to facilitate our discussion on capital planning. So Christy, if you would like to say a few words along that line, please.
Here, there, you're here.
That's fine. You
Yours
can
good?
come up if you like,
Okay,
whichever is easier for you.
I'll come through.
I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you for a few minutes. I have had some preliminary conversation with both Larry and Ryan to talk about and have a better understanding of where you are around the capital planning process. So what I'd like to do is tell you a couple of things. One, a little bit about my background, and then two, what I'm proposing for your consideration. I run a company called Human Factor Leadership. I've been in the people business for over 25 years as a leadership consultant, as a strategic planning facilitator, and as a former professor. I'm always focusing in on the people side of the work. And in that, what I've learned is that fundamentally, here's where I come from. I believe that people want to do the right things, just like in your pledge as we started today. I fundamentally believe that that's what people want to do. And that sometimes when we aren't able to get to the place we intended, there are some ways to ask questions in a different way, which is the approach that I use, that will allow people to feel heard, but not feel like they have to blame or be blamed for others as part of that process. And that's the process that I use with the hospital and the strategic planning, which, as Larry said, has just recently been approved. So in that, what we were doing was getting lots of people together to hear lots of different perspectives. So people did feel listened to. And out of that, together, they came up with a plan that allowed people to see where their voices were in that, or to come to some understandings about what were the key and critical pieces that did need to move forward. So that's the process that I'd like to propose to you that we would use. And so really it's on the people side of this equation before you get into the discussions on the capital planning. So I've entitled it a facilitated discussion on capital planning, looking at the aspirations and alignments as a working session. So to spend a small chunk of time, a 2 to 3 hour window, for us to first look at and understand what are your various perspectives and your visions for what effective and efficient capital planning means in this case. I know you're coming from different places. And so what I'd like to do is be able to give you as a group an opportunity to hear those pieces in a way that is constructive and not about finger pointing at each other. Then the next piece is then to align and make some decisions about what are the things that are your common ground. Where is it that in the approach that you're going to use will allow the discussions to be constructive for you? And in that, the approach is then we would say, so what do we keep doing? What's already been working in your process of discussion? And what might we consider changing as a group so that you come away with some rules of engagement and some ways of interacting around the discussion around capital planning that's so critical to what we and all of us, and I live in Lewis County too, to what we need to be able to do as you move forward. So that's what I'm proposing. It's a 2 or 3 hour chunk of time that we would spend together to build on and ask questions in a different way so that you can all be heard, and then feel like out of that, that you're on the same page, that you do want to get to the same good place, even if you're coming at it from different spots. Make sense? So the bottom line is, for me, I know that this is going to come back for some discussion later on after I'm not here, and in your meeting, is that it would be a pleasure for me to work with the Board of Legislators if you agree that finding constructive ways to hear the divergent points of view on this pivotal agenda item is actually something that's important to you. That's the approach that I'd be taking. So your decision point from my perspective is that something that's going to help you move to the next place? In my experience, in working locally and across North America, that's been a difference when people were not able to get their own road. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
So at this point, I'm going to open 3 public hearings. The first one will be enforcement hearings to hear from Joseph Morchek and/or John Rosher to show cause why the board should not order immediate removal of all vehicles, refuse, and debris causing violation of Lewis County junkyard law on each of their State Route 26 properties in the town of Lewis. The next public hearing is local law introductory number 5-2019, imposing a tax on occupants or hotels or motel rooms and other short-term room rentals in Lewis County. And local law number 6-2019 to establish a sustainable energy loan program. So let's start with the 2 enforcement hearings. I see Mr. Morchek is here. Would you like to say something, Mr. Morchek?
The reason that it's taking me so long to get this stuff in line is, over the past 4 years, I had pneumonia every year for the past 4 years. And I don't know if you've any of that, but it's very debilitating, and it's really hard to get back on your feet, not to mention financially impoverishing you trying to do it. So in order to get things moved and stuff, it takes money to do it, and that's why it's taking me so long to do it. And I didn't know until I just read this that even the tractor trailer box that I have there is supposedly a motor vehicle thing. I didn't know that. And there's several hundred of them things all over the countryside. I didn't know that you had to have a special permit to have something like that. So that's the reason I didn't move that yet either. I just picked letters in this piece of paper, and that's about all I got to say about it.
Thank you. Joe, you have any
Mr.
comments?
Chairman, could I be heard? Just for the record, I want to place on the record the fact that obviously Mr. Morchek is here, and we appreciate that you appeared here tonight. He was properly served. He was served with a copy of the report from codes, as the board members have. He received another copy of the local law. I would say in response to Mr. Morchek's concern about the tractor trailer box is that according to the local law, you can have one vehicle on there. So if you choose for that to be, that's fine, but you have other vehicles and you have other metal debris and appliances and lots of things that are still violating the law. So at this point in time, it's before the board. Under the law, the board has to consider whether or not, in the board's opinion, the property is a junkyard or some of the debris and the materials do constitute a junkyard. There are junk vehicles on there. There are appliances. There are metal parts. I know Mr. Morchek did remove some things last year. I don't think anything this year.
I moved a lot of stuff this year.
Did you? Okay. But it's still in violation. This has all started since 2014. And he has been fined a number of times by the court and had to pay fines. But the bottom line is I know that the county is concerned about this getting resolved, and you either be in compliance and create the fencing or the whatever we need under the statute for you to comply, or it has to be removed. So it's up to this board now to decide whether or not you want to give Mr. Morshak any period of time. And if you do that, I would suggest that you put a time frame on it, a day certain, and after that time, it will then, you can also set forth in a decision, after you have some discussion, that the county will, if it's not removed by them, by Mr. Morshak, the county will go in and remove it, and any cost that the county incurs in taking care of that removal will be added to your taxes for the property. We don't want to see that happen, Mr. Morshak, but that's, this has gone on long enough. And also, Mr. Chairman, the Code Enforcement Officer, Tim Woodrick, is here. He took some of the pictures of the property. The board has some. I know they didn't come out very well, but he is also here if the board has any questions for him.
Thank you, Joe. So, Mr. Morchek, my question to you would be, what's a reasonable time you think you could have this cleaned up?
Well, due to the weather and the time right now, depending on what the weather does, is going to put a big timeline in it. I mean, I'm not going to be able to get in there without burying the equipment to get it out of there, you know what I mean? Like those vehicles that are far enough away from the road that I'm going to have to go back in there with a machine to get them, and if the weather starts pouring or snowing, and it's going to hamper my ability to get in there to do it this year, you know what I mean? And,
so do you have a date in mind that you could have, this cleaned up?
well, I'm going to try and get those vehicles out of there this weekend, and hopefully the weather holds out for me to do that. But as far as the rest of the stuff goes, if it gets snowed on, it's going to be there. I'm not going to be able to get to it to remove it this year. There's just no way if it gets buried in snow. So,
Well, I'm going to throw something out here that, because we haven't really talked about a date internally. So my thought would be the drop dead date on this would be May 31st of next year. Contingent upon the fact that you get everything out that you can before the snow flies. You indicated you're willing to take the cars and stuff out this weekend. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that. Does anyone, Jerry, Brian, do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, the 6 years I've been here, this property has been an issue since I've been chairman of the committee. So, I mean, the appliances and stuff that sit out front by your, by the cement pad where your vehicle lift is, you have access to that from the side road.
there isn't any there. There's no.
Geez, I've been working up the Osceola now for the last 2 months, and it seems that there's a lot of stuff there now.
There's no washing machine, refrigerator.
Yeah, but there's still metal and stuff like that out there. There's still stuff laying out there. So, and I understand the vehicles and like that, but, I mean, this is Jerry's district. I mean, it's an eyesore to his and his properties that are up there, so. But I mean, I think it's gone on long enough. I really do.
Excuse me, sir, but some of that metal I'm using as I'm doing stuff, I weld, I fabricate stuff, so I use metal, so naturally I'm going to have some kind of metal around, you know what I mean? And, I can't afford to run to the steel yard every day to get stuff. And besides the fact that it's also expensive these days, I'm trying to reuse some of the materials I have, and to be cost effective. So I do have to have some of that steel there,
But if you can still consider it a junkyard, like our county attorney just said, there's a law saying that apply for the permit, put up the fence where it's hidden. I mean, if you need all that stuff there to do the work that you're doing, just comply with the law that we have. That's all that you have to do, Mr. Marchak. I mean, that's all you have to do.
So you want me to apply for a junkyard license? Is that?
Well, that's all we've been asking you to do for the last 6 years. And to comply with what the law is through the permit system. That's all we've been asking you to do.
But that also included putting a fence around the whole.
Well, I understand that. That's part of a junkyard law. That's part of being of a junkyard. So, I mean, that's up to you. I mean, that's just my opinion. I'm giving you my opinion. I understand where you're coming from, but, I mean, we have a junkyard law where we have official junkyards that are licensed that do it correctly, and by allowing you to operate or have the things that you have on your property the way that it is, it's not fair to them that we make them comply by it, and we allow you and others not to comply by it when, by the law, with the junk vehicles and like that you fall under the same law as they do. So all we're trying to do is be consistent with everyone. If we're consistent with everyone, it's fair to everyone. If you would agree with me on that.
Yes, I
Okay.
agree with you, sir.
So, but, I mean, that's my opinion, that's how I feel about it, so, but I mean, that's also up to the other 9 here too to decide, so.
Mr. Chairman, I think May 31st is realistic, but what I would like to do is hear from Tim at our committee meeting and talk to the rest of the committee members and go from there.
And Mr. Chairman, could I just, I think that Mr. King's suggestion is a good one, because we do have to, the board would now have to pass by resolution the order and the steps that they want to take under the law, and then we would serve it on Mr. Morshak. So if Tim reports at the committee meeting, then we can craft the resolution based upon what the committee decides.
Okay.
So what we're talking about here is we're going to refer this back to the committee, which meets on the 19th of November at 2 o'clock. They're going to have a discussion at that meeting. You are welcome to come. It's a public meeting. They're going to discuss your case and come up with a conclusion of how to move forward on it. So I would recommend that you be there at that meeting to have that discussion.
And show progress by then if he's got something.
And you can show progress by then. Stick it to your word and get what you can out this weekend. Jerry?
One correction, we're meeting at 1 o'clock instead
Is
of
it
2.
1? Okay, I'm sorry, 1 o'clock on the 19th, not 2 o'clock. Everyone okay with that?
And we'll send this gentleman a notice of that, so he'll have it too.
I'll take care of it.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay.
She'll send you, the attorney will send you a notice with the date and time.
Okay,
Okay.
so we'll see you on the 19th then.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you have a good, thank you.
Is there anyone here representing Mr. Rauscher?
Again, Mr. Chairman, I would like to be heard on that.
Okay.
Again, Mr. Rauscher was personally served with the notice of this hearing, with a copy of the junkyard law, with a copy of the report from the codes enforcement officer. He was personally served on October 9th. His property was also posted with the notice. Mr. Rauscher, this court is aware, this body is aware that he also has an unsafe structure, his barn, which the board by resolution determined to be unsafe and gave him until the end of this year to properly demolish. And if not, the board has directed that the county will go in and take whatever steps under that law needs to be done to render that barn safe. I would, again, you had some pictures that Code Enforcement Officer Woodruff took on this property. Mr. Rasher also, since 2014, has stated that he would comply. He did in fact file for a junkyard license, but never followed through with it. The Junkyard Review Board also met with him on a few occasions, and he just did not comply with putting the fencing in the proper place. If you look at pictures of the property, he now built a fence up next to the unsafe barn. So he's not here tonight. He did have conversation with Mr. Woodrick earlier today, and I would like the board to hear from Mr. Woodrick as to the nature of that conversation.
Mr. Rouser called me this morning. He said he will not appear tonight. He physically cannot attend because of a broken back he suffered in an auto accident, and he also has no vehicle. He stated that he plans to remove all vehicles but one from his property, and I asked for a date when this would be completed. He stated by Christmas of this year. I asked when he would get started on this, and he said not right away because he needs to heal up. He wants his $150 junkyard application fee back. I said I would check into that. And he also said I could contact his representative from Social Services, which I did. And she actually said that he is in kind of rough shape right now, can walk short distances, but that's about it. So, and he was in the hospital, I do know that, because actually that's where we served him, was in the hospital. So, but he still has minimum 10 junk vehicles there. There's probably 4 inside that collapsed structure somewhere, so he certainly is not in compliance. And then he has the collapsed structure there also. So.
Is that the structure that potentially could fall onto Route 26?
No.
No, this is a different structure, okay.
No. I don't think it's close. Okay. No, it's pretty well down right now.
Okay.
Most of it. So that's what he stated. I do have a contact number for him, so I can relay any messages back. But I asked for a date, he wouldn't give me a date. I said, John, you gotta give me something. And he said, how about Christmas? How about Christmas?
Thanks, Tim. Any questions for Tim? Anybody have questions for Tim?
So, Mr. Chairman, maybe I would make the following recommendation, that we again, Jerry, if it's okay with you, that we refer this to the committee meeting on the November 19th. And perhaps, Tim, you can take another drive by the property and inspect it so we know exactly what the condition is. We did give him until the end of this year to do something with the barn, and my suggestion would be that we would give him until the end of this year to remove the vehicles that are causing the violation of the junkyard law, and/or build a structure where the Junkyard Review Board indicated it should be
He
built.
said he's going to remove them from the property.
Right, so,
Where they're going, I have no idea.
and so that would be my recommendation, that perhaps the committee could determine and then bring back to the board at the November 19th meeting in a resolution.
John, the committee then should discuss that
Yes.
request to refund the money to, and then bring that to the full board too.
Right.
Okay.
Can you view the other one too?
What's that?
Can you view the other one too at the same time, since they're just about across the road?
Oh, you mean Mr. March?
We'll check to see if he's done anything.
Yeah, sure. All right.
You okay with that, Jerry, committee? Okay, we'll refer that one back to committee on the 19th also. So, moving on to the bed tax issue. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on the bed tax? In the audience I'm referring to. Nancy, would you come up and state your name for the record? And
I'm Nancy Kolsner. I own the Blue Silos Bed and Breakfast in Seaville. And I also have a legal business. I started 21 years ago with a bed and breakfast. Started with Airbnb last August. I do pay New York State sales tax, and I do pay the bed tax on Airbnb. So my question is it going to be the 5%? Have you decided that or thought about that yet? And for me, my concern is I have to configure how much I'm going to charge each guest, because I don't want you charging, because I already charged New York State tax, I don't want bed tax being, so I pay, the guest pays theirs, then there's New York State tax, bed tax, and Airbnb fee. So if I take the bed tax out of the cost to the guest, you will be charging on the New York State sales tax. Do you understand that? So the guests, okay, let's just do this. The guests pay $35. Then there's like 2 something for the New York State taxes added on the $35. And then the bed tax is up $1.75, and the Airbnb fee is $1.20. So if I'm already paying for all this and reporting it, my issue is that I'm going to have to figure out how to take the New York State tax out, because Airbnb charges one figure to the guest. So it's not there, and the tax would be on top of that, the bed tax, right?
Our understanding is that Airbnb, well, it is 5%. It's the same 5% that it's been since 2006.
Okay.
But Airbnb will administer the fees for you. They will deduct the 5%. They will send that to the county, and they will send the money that they take in as an online service to you for the actual room. I'm not sure if they pay the rest of the sales taxes or not. Do you?
I don't know what that relationship is with the.
I don't think so, because they don't add a New York State sales tax on top of my guest cost or guest fee.
Okay.
So they don't. So that's why I add it on to the total cost.
This should simplify it for you, because they're going to administer the 5% for you, collect the money, and make the payment. You shouldn't have to deal with it.
But exactly, okay, so that part, I can just eliminate the bed tax cost to the guest that I do right now.
Okay.
So that part's fine. But you're going to charge 5% on what I'm paying New York State.
I don't think taxes are paid or charged on other taxes.
I charge them. Airbnb accepts one figure. Let's say it's $40, which it is for me, per guest. So it's $40, $35 is a guest, the rest are all taxes. So if I'm going to, instead of losing money, I'm going to have to make sure that New York State, because they don't take money out of me and send it to New York State, that's my responsibility. You're going to be different because you're a municipality that is asking them to do this, where New York State does not.
Okay, so let me ask you this question.
Okay.
You charge 5% now and send it to the county.
Sure.
Okay, so you're not going to have to make that calculation. They're going to do it for you.
Right, right. That's no problem with me.
Everything else stays the same,
Except
that you won't have to make the bed tax calculation.
Correct. But 40, I charge 40, no, 35. So $295, which is New York State tax, is going to be $37.95, and you're going to charge the 5% on the $37.95.
No. Can I just?
Yes.
If your fee for the room is $35, and this is something that you would work out with Airbnb,
No.
the 5% that you're paying is going to be on the room rate.
Right.
That's what the law says. Your sales tax with New York State is always your sales tax, and that's something that you always pay directly.
Right.
But the agreement with Airbnb,
It's $37.95.
whatever the room rate is, that's what the 5% is going to be factored on.
Okay, so
We are not factoring it on any sales tax that you're paying.
Okay. Not getting it.
So when you tell them it's $40, what do you get in return?
35.
You
I
get
get the
35.
40. I get the 40.
You get the 40.
But I have to deduct from the 40 the New York State sales tax and the bed tax.
because they don't submit to New York State.
That's
for you.
correct. That's correct. It's no big deal, I just wanted you to know it's a glitch
Right.
for me.
That is a
that I have to
glitch.
deal with. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Anyone else like to comment? Mr. Gilly?
Mike Gilly, Gilly's Bed and Breakfast. Couple of questions. The form that the county sends out, is that going to be amended? So if we're using the Airbnb, that we're going to get some kind of credit, or we can exclude that income that came from Airbnb?
I don't know yet because we don't have an agreement with Airbnb yet, but I think the intention is that something is going to come directly from Airbnb for the 5% to the county. They're going to give you documentation of what the breakdown is. But I don't know for sure what the form will look like.
So if it is passed, you're going to have to change the form then accordingly?
Probably.
Okay. Secondly, I'm in favor of the tax as far as expanding it out to the other businesses. However, there doesn't seem to be any teeth in the law. It's up to the owners of those businesses to say, hey, I'm having people stay at my house. Who's going to enforce it? There is no enforcement of this law whatsoever. And there hasn't been. So therefore, there are people that don't want to pay, have not paid in the past. Now, I've paid from day one, and I'm sure other bed and breakfasts have as well. How are we going to fix this?
Well, we just wanted to change the law to expand it. I'm not so sure that we've had any issues in terms of an inability to enforce. We were able to, because of Airbnb and those other online services, we're going to capture a lot more of the facilities that are offering these rentals.
So in the past years, somebody from the Treasury has actually called the business up and said, I see a sign out at your house that you're renting rooms?
Actually, we have done that, yes.
Okay, that's what I need to know. Thank you.
Ryan, go ahead.
With Airbnb, being that we're this law that we're going to bring them into this, they will, anyone that's renting these homes out, I would assume that renting homes out using Airbnb, you're automatically going to get that 5% from
Right.
Airbnb. So we're going to know who these businesses are
Right.
that are using them through Airbnb. That would be my assumption.
What about the ones that don't use?
Well, those, I mean, if you can come up with a miracle solution for that, I mean, that's going to be by word of mouth. If someone hears that and reports it, that's the only way you're ever going to find out that. But I mean, as far as the ones that are using Airbnb, we're going to know that because they're automatically going to have to give us that 5% bed tax. So the ones that we're using there, so that solves part of the problem that you're talking about. As far as the ones that you don't know about, I mean, I don't know if there's any perfect solution for that. I really don't, except for that it's going to be through word of mouth, and that'll be up to someone to come to this group, whoever is sitting here, and report that, you know, and then that's how that'll be handled, so.
We have law enforcement for our laws that we have. We also have building enforcement for our building codes.
You're right.
And those are because we have regulations that we have to follow.
Mhm.
This is a regulation for a tax that should somehow have some teeth on it, where people actually have some way to report back to the body. And that shouldn't have to be other bed and breakfast to turn around and say, oh, by the way, my neighbor's doing this and he's not reporting it.
But how would you enforce that unless you start going knocking around on doors and asking all these rental homes if, are you a resident here or are you renting? How are you going to do that? I mean, that's the only other way that you'd be able to do that is go around and knock on anyone's doors.
Well, how do you do it for other things? The code enforcement goes out and sees things built, and they report on it. Law enforcement goes out and sees things that are wrong, they take care of it. Can't there be somebody within the county itself to go out once a month or whatever and look for signs? Or look on...
But I can say that we've had discussions about the enforcement issue, and we really haven't come to any conclusions on how to handle that yet. But we are aware it's there, and we're trying to figure that out. One thing I would like to make clear to everyone here is This has been spun a little bit in some of the media. This is not a new tax. This bed tax has been around since 2006. The only thing that we're trying to do here is level the playing field for the people that are actually paying it and incorporate into the law so that we're able to do contracts with Airbnb and vacation by rental, by owner rental, or however that one is. They're two online sites. So nothing else in the law changes. It just enables us to have contracts with any online entity to administer the bed tax.
I think it's a good start. It's a good starting point.
Anyone else have any questions, comments? Tim?
I'd just like to know, is there a cost to the county to do that 5% with Airbnb and Verbo?
No,
No cost at all?
no cost.
Anyone else?
Yes. Yeah, my name's Ralph Kimbrough. I have,
Could you come up,
sure.
please?
My name is Ralph Kimbrough, and I have about 3 cabin vacation rentals, and most of them are through VRBO, not Airbnb, even though I do advertise on it. So is VRBO going to do the same type of thing, this vacation rental? It's actually HomeAway and VRBO, they're kind of the same company.
We don't know that yet, but we anticipate maybe with Airbnb as a starting point with an
Okay.
agreement with them that might follow suit.
Okay, so is this beds tax considered a sales tax? I'm kind of confused on how that all works. Because the way I kind of do it is, my accountant says I don't have to pay sales tax. Because just the way the lodge tax is, where I don't provide a service and so forth, I just let them stay in a place. So now I understand the 5% is kind of like that leveling field, is that what I'm kind of getting? With the other people?
It's a statute that allows the local municipality to charge a certain percentage. We had to get approval by the state to initially have this bed tax, what we call a bed tax,
Okay.
back in 2006. So I don't know how you would view it, but
Okay.
it could be viewed that way, I suppose. But it's a tax to the local municipality who is to people who are renting out their homes or their apartments or their buildings or whatever, because of the cost to the county with additional people being in,
Sure.
using homes.
No, I kind of knew it was going to happen because I know this, pretty much the whole country is getting
Yeah.
into the whole thing. So, I mean, I'm not really against it. I'm just kind of trying to figure out how I'm going to go about it.
To answer your question in short, Ralph, it's a tax, okay?
Right.
Whether it's sales tax or bed tax,
Right.
it is a tax. So, I mean, the hotels all pay it, the bed and breakfasts all pay it.
Right.
Within the law, if you read the law, it's any short-term rental under 30 days. So it doesn't affect anyone that's renting apartments or like long-term rentals like that, so.
Okay.
I would add that there are contracts with Airbnb. I haven't seen a municipality that's been able to work something out yet with VRBO. It's not that they haven't, I just haven't seen one yet. I'm sure it's coming down the pike because that's a huge site. Whether VRBO goes into contract with us or not, if you're listed on there, and we're probably step one after this, if this passes, is going to be to send a letter to everybody who's got a property listed
Right.
on those sites. So whether your VRBO takes care of the tax or not, you still have to, you'll still be responsible for paying it to the county.
Right. I have an accountant that would.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, Mike, with, like you were asking, how they're going to be enforced. If they're making any other type of money off their place, they have to report it on their taxes, so.
Supposedly.
Yeah, supposedly. So if they report on their taxes, Mike, I think, that's on record, so eventually they'll have to pay for it. But I'd also like to say, I think Lewis County in general is a gem for this type of business. People that I rent to, they love coming to the area, the state land, the woods, the rivers. I necessarily don't rent to all snowmobilers and ATVers, and they're just the people that come up just love to get away. And I used to sell these cabins, and the way the market has gone lately with real estate, it's kind of hard to really gain a profit. So I've turned to this, and it's really done well. And I noticed that they said some of this money will go back into the county. What type of things are we looking at?
So last year through the occupancy tax, we collected about $90,000. It goes into the general fund. It isn't, targeted a specific fund, but we put into tourism and marketing for the county over $130,000. So we don't depend on this solely for our tourism budget, but we like to think that that's the basic strategy. The money that comes into the general fund is the money that gets used for, So somebody comes and stays at your place and pays that tax, hopefully that money is used for an advertisement that somebody else sees that they want to come to Lewis County and draws more business.
All right, very well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, is there anyone would like privilege of the floor for any other discussion? Okay, anyone here would like to comment on the energy loan? Yes, sir.
Good evening, thank you for hearing me. I'm Jim Koch. I live on East Road in Deer River, and I'd like to ask a few questions. I sent a letter, I hope you all were privileged to get that, but it discussed some issues that could come forward with this law, and I wanted to have a brief discussion with you this evening. And I guess the way to do that, the first question I would have is, have there been, as I read Resolution 377, it just enacts the law. Have there been regulations or other legal restrictions that are not visible to me when I read the resolution? Have you got something that's going to show how this law is going to operate?
I'm not really sure I understand.
Okay,
Yeah, I can help with that. Yes, the state of New York has established the CPACE program through state legislation. So the reason that this energy corporation exists is because the state of New York gave it authority to exist. So that's where we're coming from.
Okay, and I understand that. My question really revolves around how are you going to administer that with this corporation? Are you just signing on and allowing the corporation's rules to govern? Because let me get to my point then. This law allows business owners, commercial business owners, and nonprofits to seek loans to do energy performance improvements, sustainable energy. I've got no problem with that. Folks, if we're going to reduce our carbon footprint, we need to do things to do that, or we're not going to leave a world that's worth a hoot to our grandchildren. It's that simple. We have to do something. And the governor has set a goal. And this is all part of that goal. You're using this loan program to effect that policy. And I think that that's admirable. But what I don't want to see happen is that you step into this without a consideration for how it's going to run. Let me give you some thoughts that I did. Why would somebody turn to this loan program? I can come up with 3 reasons. The first reason is the administrative costs of originating a loan are probably going to be eaten by the loan corporation because you're trying to get a policy. So they're going to be minimal. In my former job, I used the dormitory authority because I could avoid $120,000 in origination fees in selling bonds and issuing serial bonds. Why wouldn't I do that? That's money that the dormitory authority covered. So somebody may have that as a motivation. The second motivation is the interest rates may be less. The interest rates on these loans may be lower. The first reason that I could see that happening would be you're trying to do this as a policy, so the interest rate should be lower. But there's another darker downside. If the interest rate is lower, why is the interest rate from a commercial bank higher from a commercial source? If it is higher because it's a riskier proposition, then I have a concern about that. If it's higher because, well, we're setting a much lower rate to make this policy work, that's fine. But if you have bankers absorb risk by raising the rates, the riskier a loan, you see this on a car loan, the higher the rate you're going to see. So that could be a counterbalancing force. The third thing is the business owner or the nonprofit may have already gone to a commercial source and been rejected. And you have to ask why. My concern is that it's not fair for the taxpayers of Lewis County and for the business owners for us to set them up for something that may be risky. In my letter, I suggested that you look at the loan value to the value of the property, and that something be said. For individuals, the state has set that at 10%, but there is nothing in force at any level. So somebody could conceivably have a $300,000 property with $300,000 against it in a mortgage, and then come to the county and ask for another $150,000 to put solar panels on the roof. If they then can't service that debt, they go belly up, and who owns the property?
Well, I think you're above and beyond what we understand for this to be. This allows a company, a solar company, to essentially lend the people the monetary value of the solar panels that they put on the roof. So, it puts them in probably second place behind a bank mortgage on the house. If they default on the loan to this, one of the questions that came up in committee was, does the loan get passed on if the property sells in foreclosure? There isn't any risk involved here to the county. If the risk is involved to the solar company or whoever lent the landowner the money to put this together. So if they default on the mortgage, so to speak, we don't believe that passes through on a foreclosure sale. So the risk would be to the lender. There is no risk to the county. That's the way we understand it.
Well, my concern is this. If they default on the mortgage, they're probably also in default on their taxes, because they're going to be paying, and then they're going to end up. My concern is that you end up with a property, and the taxpayers end up with a property. I don't think it's fair to the taxpayers, and I don't think it's fair to the business owner to set them up to the potential for failure. The enabling legislation that the state put forward gives this body the right to set some goals. And I cited that in my letter to you. I cited the section of the law for the attorney. It's subparagraph 6B of GML 119GG. And it states that you can impose limits. This body can impose limits. What I'm asking you to do is to table your resolution to enact it until you take time to look at this as a possibility, so that if you desire to impose some limits to keep people from getting in over their heads, you've got that. Don't just open up the door. Table the resolution. There's not a rush. I used to have a sign in my office. I'm here to please. You can have a good, fast, cheap. Mr. Zaire has seen this sign. Pick any two. If you want it good and fast, it's not cheap. If you want it good and cheap, it's not fast. And if you want it fast and cheap, it's not good. I'm encouraging you, don't go into this fast, and don't go into it without putting the research in, because it won't be a good resolution. I'm just asking you to table it, to take a look at this and to see whether or not you want to put some restrictions on how much, so that you take a good look at why is the business person or the nonprofit not going through a commercial agency. Folks, people don't come to the government for a loan because paperwork's less. They come to the government for a loan because it's the court of last resort in most cases. That's my case.
So let me, can I speak, Chairman? I want to fully understand, so you're asking us as a body here to make sure that we create a law that we're going to protect people from themselves.
That's correct.
Basically what you're saying.
That's correct.
These grant programs have been available for the last 6-7 years through the federal government, where you can put solar panels on top of your house and you can use a lease program. These programs have been going on right along.
And I wouldn't deny that.
And so this is basically, from what, I haven't been involved in that committee, so but basically what I'm hearing you say, Chairman, it's the same thing. All the liability falls on, the risk all falls on the solar company.
And I'm confused, you're saying this is a government loan. How is this a government loan?
Because it's a NYSERDA POM, a Program Objective Memorandum, that's running it. It's through NYSERDA this is being operated.
Right.
So it's de facto an arm of the government. It's an arm of the state of New York.
But the NYSERDA is not the lender.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
CPACE is its own, I think, public benefit corporation that the state has given permission to exist.
And there's a number of investors that
Yes.
make up.
So we are essentially what your legislation today says is giving this CPACE, this public benefit corporation, the permission to operate in Lewis County, and that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is permission also to place a lien on the property if, just like a bank, if they cannot make the payments. And that's what we, had in-depth discussion with the CPACE folks at the second committee meeting when they called in. I think that you certainly make some good points. I think we looked at this from the perspective that, this public benefit corporation is not intended to be predatory, and it, of course, intended to be predatory. And like Brian said, if a business owner, a homeowner wants to, do a project that makes their house more energy efficient, then, we're just simply providing them another avenue to fund that.
And while I appreciate that avenue, my point is, if you can't get that from a commercial lender, you turn to this program, there's something innately just a little bit off. Why did the commercial lender say no, is what I'm asking. What's the risk? So, turning to this program as the court, people don't do it because there's no paperwork. You have to do an energy survey on this. This is not going to be an easy gate to cross. But they turn to this because there is no other way to get it. And that could be because they're overburdened with debt. Why would we want to hurt our own taxpayers? Why would we, if they end up in tax default, want to own the property too? That's my point. I'm just asking you to take a look at this. Table the resolution for another month. Take a look at it. You don't have to just take a look at it. That's all I'm asking of the board.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anyone have any comments? Okay, back to privilege of the floor for any other topics that anyone would like to discuss. Okay, moving on to presentations of communications and notices. Terry, please.
Kevin M. McCardle submitted a letter of resignation as a member of the Lewis County Ethics Board. Lowell Volunteer Fire Department Fire Chief Joseph Austin forwarded a letter to express their deepest gratitude for the board's approval of the county allocation, reporting the funds would be used for vehicle repairs and maintenance. In part, he stated, "We are grateful to live in a community where people understand the hard work and dedication it takes to operate a safe and efficient fire department." James Koch, Deer River resident, urges that prior to the board's adoption of the proposed local law to establish a sustainable energy loan program, that they first establish qualifying requirements allowed by the enabling state legislation to set a maximum amount that may be borrowed through such a loan, which may consider factors including, but not limited to, the property value, projected savings, project cost, and existing indebtedness secured by such property. Relative to the proposed local law to impose a tax on occupants of hotel, motel, and short-term room rentals, John Duran, property manager of the Beaver Creek Lodge in Copenhagen, submits that almost all of his occupants are non-residents and none of them question about the bed tax. He asserts the current process is not onerous and that some of the online sites automatically collect and submit the tax directly to the appropriate taxing authority. While affirming his intent to comply with the law, Mr. Duran urges fair and equitable application of the tax law for all short-term vacation rentals or tax none of them. Congresswoman Elise Stefanik and U.S. Senators Charles Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand acknowledged receipt of the board's resolution opposing the ban on flavored milk in New York City schools. New York City Department of Education Senior Executive Director of Public Affairs, Gabriel Mall, responded that chocolate milk continues to be served in New York City schools and there have been no changes to their offerings or procurements of chocolate milk at this time. The board acknowledges receipt of several resolutions adopted by the Sullivan County Legislature to urge various measures by the governor and state legislature for changes to early intervention, preschool, and Medicaid programs for positive impact on county governments. The 2020 tentative county budget has been submitted by County Budget Officer Ryan Pache and has been distributed to each legislator accompanied by his budget message. The semi-annual mortgage tax report was submitted by the county clerk and county treasurer. And that report has been distributed to each legislator as well. County Treasurer Patricia O'Brien and Real Property Tax Director Candy Aiken have submitted approved applications for a $1,849 refund or credit of real property taxes for William and April Roberts in the town of Lansdale and $57.94 to Michael and Luann Russell in the town of West Turin. Legislators have received copies of the Treasurer's October report, the Highway and Solid Waste Department audit reports, and minutes of the October 25 Lewis County Agricultural Sustainability Council and the October 16 Youth Bureau Advisory Board meetings. James Richmeyer has submitted the September Sealer Weights and Measured Activity Report that was placed on file in my office. And that concludes correspondence.
Thank you, Terry. Reports of county officers and departments.
Sorry. I had already listed those, I'm sorry.
Reports of standing committees. Ryan, would you like to start with finance and rules, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last month's committee meeting at Finance and Rules, we went over the budget. That's all that we did, is went over the tentative budget somewhat. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Brian? Thank you, Brian. Gary, General Services Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did have a meeting today to take care of some late stuff. One was stand tax, make some decisions on above ground tanks or below type of pump, the location where we're going to put it, so you'll be seeing more on that. And DA has a late resolution in there, would like to hire now as far as for next year's person start to search because it's taken her so long before. And so that's one that'll be in PSB and Highway. Matt has got a request in for $6,000 to complete the lights in the highway and PSB. That's all we lack of turning them over to energy efficient, and we can do that for an additional $6,000. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Chair, you do have two motions. You can put them
Oh,
on.
yes, I do. Thank you. Keep me straight. Motion to authorize Sheriff Carbonelli to refill one part-time dispatcher correction officer position due to resignation to accept a full-time position elsewhere.
Moved by Jerry, second by Tom. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
And a motion to authorize Buildings and Grounds Supervisor Matt O'Connor to refill a full-time cleaner's position effective immediately.
Moved by Jerry, second by Brian. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you, Terry.
Any questions for Jerry? Brian?
Is that Matt has that in his budget for capital, or is it something we have to take out of contingency or something?
He's got it.
He's got it, okay. I just,
And the same way with the DA, we looked at hers, and she's got it there if it starts early.
Thank you, Jerry. Greg, Health and Human Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Human Services Committee met as normal, just with nothing new on the agenda. I do have two motions though. I have a motion to authorize Commissioner Jenny Jones to refill a community service worker effective immediately.
Moved by Greg, second by John. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
I have a motion to authorize refilling the Office of the Aging Director position due to a resignation effective immediately.
Moved by Greg, second by John. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Then I will have an amendment to Resolution 399 when it comes up. A small glitch within that resolution. That's all I have to report.
Any questions for Greg? Thank you, Greg. Dick is the board's representative on the hospital board of managers.
Just a couple of things, Chairman. First off, we recognize the Friends of Lewis County Hospice for their $100,000 grant for hospice services program. Secondly, the Employee of the Month is Julie Hanno. She's an MRI technologist. Everybody's very pleased with her work. She's a great person as far as providing leadership and helping out with the patients. Under finance, we had a loss of $396,825, but we still have a gain for the year of $282,364 versus a budgeted gain of $472,501, which looks like with a month to go, we're going to clear the year out either even or a little to the good. We approved the 2020 budget to send down here to be included with our budget so that we can do all the budget processes together. We had a motion by Mrs. Jones to create 2 full-time clinic practice office manager position cards with a salary range not to exceed $55,000. It's in your packet tonight. When we get to that, I'll provide more information as needed. And the board, recognizing that we've had some difficulty with people applying for board membership, have asked if we would entertain changing the board from 11 members to 10 members. And I'd like to make that a motion.
Moved by Dick, second by Greg. Discussion. Jerry.
The only question I got, that's an even number. Aren't the board supposed to be odd?
The president's vote, in case of a tie, will solve that problem.
Okay.
That's why the president will vote last.
Any other questions? Comments?
Thank you, Jerry, for your questions.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
And lastly, I'll yield to Mr. Kerr, who's here in the audience tonight, in case he'd like to talk to the board more.
Okay. Before I lose track of it, do you want to make a motion on the,
No, let's do that when we get to
Okay.
the Secretary report.
Mr. Kayer?
Thank you, but I have nothing to add. Mr. Chartrand covered our meeting.
Okay. And lastly, Chair, I left out that we do have a new helicopter pad. I saw some pictures of us there while we were doing that. And that, I believe the fire department's equally grateful because in the middle of the night now, the people who are already there servicing and taking care of the people will be the people that are handling them to the pad. That concludes my report.
Any questions for Dick? Thanks, Dick. County manager report, Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you have the tentative operating budget as well as a tentative capital budget. Last year I tried to get a capital budget in front of you guys, but it wasn't, I don't think, as organized as this is. So just a note on the budget process from here. We will meet on November 19th for the budget hearing, but there's no rush to approve this document as long as it's done before January 1st. So take your time, go through it. If you guys want to make any changes, we can do that. So that's not a big deal.
No, it's got to be done in the beginning of December so we can do the rates.
Okay. Well, there is a rush. Well, there's, in the past, this board has waited quite a long time, so. Anyhow, the capital, the 5-year capital plan, the same thing applies to that. I would add with the 5-year capital plan that it's a plan, okay? So if we approve the 5-year capital plan, it doesn't mean that we're definitely going to do, a bridge next to Randy's house in 2023. It means we're planning to try to get ready to do that project. So it's just a plan. I'm getting aware that the new regional recycling transfer site at the HDK site in Harrisville will be opening. They're having a ribbon cutting in Harrisville tomorrow at 11 o'clock. So you should have all received an invitation to that. If you haven't, consider this your invitation. We are going down, the Ag Sustainability Committee is trying to meet with the Oneida County Executive because they set up an Agricultural Sustainability Committee down there. They've had some success with it. We're shooting for Thursday or Friday, the 21st or the 22nd. So if you want to join us to go down and visit Oneida County and learn some of what they're doing, that's what we're trying to get down there. Rail patrol negotiations are ongoing. We've had one meeting so far with the union. They've given us some of the, some of what they're looking for in the contract, and we'll be meeting again with them next week. And just an update, I just talked about Mackenzie this afternoon. Our storm that we had Thursday, Friday, Saturday of last week has yielded about $60,000 worth of damage, which is kind of routine for us in a flooding event, but certainly not within the range of any disaster declarations or any reimbursement from the state or federal government. So that would be my report. Thank you.
Any questions for Ryan? If not, we'll move on to Patty, the treasurer's report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have your balances for the month. Special legislative contingency, $65,442. Regular contingency, $164,845.05. Capital data processing, $49,296.79. Capital equipment, highway portion, $50,751.30. County portion, $261,132.24. Sales tax to date, $9,271,842.25. We're definitely going to meet our budget. And the internal service fund, our fund balance is $4,970,070.59. And that's all I have, unless anyone has any questions.
Yes, Chairman. About 10, 12 months ago, Greg Calder and I were talking from this group about the internal service fund, and his prediction was that we would soon have more money than we really should have in there for a fund balance. And the discussion, as I remember, centered around the lines that when that happened, we were going to be a little conservative and make conditions to get to that point. And then when that happened, we'd do something. So I'd like to make a motion that we lapse one pay period reduction in the healthcare premium as sort of a Christmas present to all the employees of the town. The banks do it, but they tack it on at the end. We're going to do it, hopefully not tack it on.
Moved by Dick,
Well, one pay period or 1 month?
I want to do a month, but somebody said pay period, so.
One pay period is what I gave you.
Yeah, she asked for one pay period, so. If you want to do a month, I'll change my motion. That would be 2 pay periods, and we can afford it. It's 107 roughly, give or take, per pay period. And we got 4,009,000. I'd like to do a month. I thought we couldn't do 2 months, but I'll change my motion to a month, because that will then give us a chance to look at it over a couple of period months and see where we're going if we need to discuss this more.
I'm sorry, Dick, would you just clarify, is it 1 month or 1 pay
I
period?
amended my motion.
1 month.
1 month. That would be 2 pay periods. And what you were saying, there's only 2 pay periods in December, so that's what the month is. I got confused, I'm sorry.
so I was moved by Dick, do I have a second? John? Any further discussion? Brian?
I thought through the proposed budget, we've already decided that we could freeze the premiums for next year.
Correct. So
There's no increase next year.
there will be no increase in the 2020 budget, correct?
That's why I say we're not going to tack it back on in the end.
Patty, do we have a price for that month?
14, give or take, right?
14,000?
Can I just clarify that that's active employees?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Ryan, you're saying in our budget right now, we haven't approved, that we are freezing the premium?
I wouldn't say freezing, I would say we're not budgeting for an increase in 2020.
So basically what you're saying, that if need be, because all of a sudden it doesn't do what we think it's going to do, we can turn around and tack on another 2% or 4%? Or
I would say no, because if we don't budget for it and you in July or August want to start charging an additional 4% or 7% on premiums, we're going to have to take it out of the fund balance. So the budget as it's written, which of course you can change, but would say that we are planning on and budgeting for not doing any increases for the year of 2020. And the reason for that is, kind of like what Dick said, is our goal is to hit 4 million. We've reached 4.9 million, and any other increases are only going to
go over.
Right.
Because that's what I said would happen in January of 2019, when we turned around and raised the 2% anyway, but nobody else could see that coming.
I guess you're the intelligent one of us all, then, Greg, aren't you?
Well,
We're proposing to freeze it.
So
We're
we'll have,
proposing to freeze it.
So, but I'm just asking if we can change that mid-year. But if you say we can't and we're going to bring it out of fund balance, then I have no problem with it.
Tack it on the taxpayers next year.
But if your presentation was correct, we're at 4.9 now, we'll have plenty of stuff. Hopefully.
any further discussion? All in favor?
I abstain,
Opposed?
because I am on this health thing, I abstain.
Yeah,
You abstain?
understood.
Show Brian abstaining. Motion carries.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dick. Okay, at this point, we'll close the public hearings on the local laws, the number 5, 2019 occupancy tax, and number 6, 2019 energy loan program, and also the public enforcement hearings on the 2 junkyard violations. Report of the Finance and Rules Committee for Rule 7 period.
The Finance and Rules Committee reports they've examined the claims presented for payment in a total amount of $1,503,442.83. and recommend that they be audited and allowed for the amounts claimed. Signed by the entire committee.
Moved by Jerry, second by Dick. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Resolution 374 then. Resolved that the claims run for payment in the amount of $1,503,442.83 be audited and allowed for the amounts claimed.
Moved by John, second by Brian. Discussion. Roll call, Jerry.
Burns,
Yes.
Chartran,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Calder,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Howerhand,
Yes.
Mosher,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Dahlhoff.
Yes.
Local law introductory number 7 to override the tax levy limit, to rescind, local law number 5 to override the tax levy. Resolution 375 is to set the public hearing for that local law for November 19.
Moved by Brian, or Jerry, second by Randy. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
376, adopt local law number 6, imposing tax on occupants of hotel and motel rooms and other short-term room rentals in Lewis County.
Moved by Brian, second by Ron. Discussion. All in favor?
I'm sorry, roll call vote.
Oops, sorry.
Burns,
Yes.
Chartran,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Calder, Bishop,
Yes.
Lehman,
No.
Moorhan,
Yes.
Mosher,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Dahlhoff.
Yes.
Resolution 377 adopts local law number 7, energize New York open pace financing local law.
Moved by Ron, second by Dick. Discussion. So, Joan, if we move to table this, we have to do another public hearing over again? My other question about the gentleman left was if he has a personal interest in this, and if that was what was driving the...
I mean, truthfully, there is no great rush on this, but, it's up to the board. I mean, I was not aware of that letter. I would have looked into that if I had a copy of it, but
Who got the letter?
I received the letter, shared it.
Probably like yesterday or something.
I received the letter, shared it with Larry and Ryan.
Okay.
John, you moved the table?
No, I said I see no reason to.
Could I make a comment, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
So it sounds like what the gentleman was suggesting is that we edit the law to put a limit to what the property that's applying can leverage their, property. So if you owe, 60% or more, we're not going to let you borrow above that. Is that what you guys were
That's kind
understanding?
of what I understood it, and it sounds like to me then he's asking us to create a law that we're gonna tell an entity how much they can loan someone. That'd be like us telling a bank that you're only gonna loan our residents a certain amount of money. I'm sure that they have their own criteria that they go by. That would be mine. I mean, I understand where he's coming from, protecting some of our residents from themselves, but that's not our,
That was, my interpretation was that he was saying, we maybe set a limit that no more than 60% debt to equity in order to access this program or something like that, but.
Yeah, but why would anybody that's financing this want to put a person in a situation where they can't pay?
Yeah.
What advantage is it to the lending institution?
It does.
It seems to me there would be some self-imposed restrictions. You know, let's say if the house is worth $100,000, they're not going to loan them $200,000 worth of solar panels. I mean, there's got to be some kind of self-regulatory.
I don't think so. I mean,
And isn't this a commercial or business entity?
non-profit commercial.
Right, so it's not really for, you, me, and our homes.
Well, the question is, if this became a problem down the road, we could go back into this law and add something to it.
We could, or we could even rescind it.
I guess it'd be interesting that, I mean, if you just wanted to dig into it and find out what the contract is with these companies that are.
Between who are going to lend
Right,
the
to see
money.
what the contracts.
And we really want to get
But
into it.
are we in the business of controlling a private entity or even a public entity, how they write their contracts and how they do their business?
Well, the state's already controlling.
Yeah, they're already
It has to be
controlling,
certified
so-
by the state.
Yeah,
You know,
so-
we get blamed a lot of times for being too strict on our residents and not letting them do what they want to do. I can't see, if I was a commercial lender, I could see the other side. This is investment capital, people that want to invest capital, there's a lot of it going on all the time.
Well, the way the law stands now, we have no administrative responsibilities.
And no
If
obligation.
we go tweaking this thing and making it 60/40 or
Oh, yeah.
changing the debt to equity or anything else, then we're part of the process.
And I am not qualified to make that judgment, even if somebody came to me, so. I'm called for the vote, Chairman.
Call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
No, it's a roll call, please.
Oh, okay.
Burns,
Yes.
Chartran,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Causer,
Yes.
Lishos,
No.
Raymond,
Yes.
Monahan,
Yes.
Mosher,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Dahl.
Yes.
Set a public hearing for November 19 on the 2020 tentative county budget.
Moved by Tom, second by Brian. Discussion?
So, did I hear you say that we're gonna bring the hospital in on this one too? Was
The
that what
hospital
you were
always
saying?
sends their budget
Yeah.
down and becomes part of it.
Okay, okay,
Exactly, that actually, just to note, the hospital budget's already in this.
okay, it already is, okay.
But we have to vote.
Right, no, I know,
Send it.
right, okay.
That's all.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Approving agreements between the county and National Grid for LED lighting upgrades.
Moved by Andrea, second by John. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Resolution number 380 has been withdrawn. To authorize I Love New York campaign matching funds and designate the chamber as the county's agent.
Moved by Ron, second by Andrea. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Authorize an agreement between Community Services and Fort Drum Regional Health Planning Organization.
Moved by Barry, second by Andrea. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Authorize agreement between Community Services and various providers for program services.
Moved by Jerry, second by Tom. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
To transfer funds, Community Services.
Moved by Jerry, second by Andrea. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
To transfer funds, County Clerk.
Moved by John, second by Greg. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
To award and adopt New York State Deferred Compensation Plan.
Moved by Greg, second by Jerry. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Amended compensation plan with reference to district attorney office.
Moved by Dick, second by Greg. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
To appropriate funds, Board of Elections.
Moved by Brian, second by Tom. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Appointing member to Lewis County Ethics Board, Dennis Mastacusa.
Moved by Ryan, second by Andrea. Discussion.
Tim is moving.
He's too moved to Indiana.
Excuse me.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
To appoint Charles Truax to the Lewis County Ethics Board.
Moved by Tom, second by Dick. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Authorizing lease purchase agreement between the county and Key Government Finance.
Moved by Tom, second Randy. Discussion. Jerry?
This a new one, or is this just another payment? I wasn't quite sure.
This is a new one.
This is, okay. Thank you.
Did he happen to explain why he's changing models? Or is he going off the state bid for these? Because the last few that we've gotten have been lesser stars.
He gave us explanations, but I don't
You
remember
don't
offhand
remember
what they
any?
were. I know it was something to do with the double frame and, yeah.
Okay, I was just kind
The
of
equipment
curious.
this one's replacing is,
Right, no, I understand that, but I know the last couple we've been buying have been lesser stars. And I was wondering, because by changing makes, then you gotta carry different types of parts.
Oh, yeah.
And like that, so I was just kind of curious.
no, good question.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
To appropriate funds, Highway Department.
Moved by Brian, second by John. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
To transfer funds, Highway Department.
Moved by Jerry, second by Ron. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
To amend and adopt doing business as designation formerly known as Lewis County General Hospital and Residential Health Care Facility to be designated as Lewis County Health System.
Moved by Jerry, second by Tom. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
To appropriate funds, information technology.
Moved by Brian, second by Ron. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Close capital JCC Extension Center account.
Moved by Ron, second by Tom. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Authorizing addendum agreement between the county and Office for Aging and Open Sky Wellness.
Moved by Andrea, second by Randy. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I abstain, Terry. Motion carries.
Authorizing agreement between Office for Aging and Volunteer Transportation Center of Jefferson County.
Moved by Randy, second by Ron. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
99, authorizing agreements between Office for the Aging and various providers for program services.
Moved by Randy, second by Tom. Discussion. Greg?
I'd like to make an amendment to this resolution, Mr. Chairman. There's an incorrect figure on here. Under toilet staffing, the hourly rate is not 18, it is $20 per hour. That is the amended, that is how I'd like to amend it, $20.
Okay, to Greg's amendment, do I have a second for that? Dick, discussion on the amendment? All in favor? Opposed? Amendment carries. Now on the resolution, any further discussion, John?
How come Maple Ridge is 1,200 a month? So much more, you know,
Because we rent, I think because we rent kitchen general.
Okay, that's what I was curious about.
All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Authorizing agreement between Department of Probation and Rubenzoll, Knudsen and Associates.
Moved by Jerry, second by John. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
To appropriate funds, probation.
Moved by Ron, second by Andrea. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Authorizing contract between the County and New York State Office of Indigent Legal Services.
Moved by Tom, second by Jerry. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
To appropriate funds, public defender.
Moved by Jerry, second by Tom. Discussion? In favor? Opposed? Carries.
Authorizing amendments to Phase 4 Project Addendum, Public Health and Central New York Care Collaborative.
Moved by John, second by Ron. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Appropriate funds, recreation trail maintenance.
Moved by Ron, second by Tom. Discussion? In favor? Opposed? Carries.
Authorizing agreement between the County and New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services for Boone Memorial Justice Assistance Grant for the Sheriff's Department.
Moved by Jerry, second by Tom. Discussion?
This supplements the grant so we can get the vehicle, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Authorizing agreement between the County and New York State Division of Homeland Security and Public Safety.
Moved by John, second by Brian. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
To appropriate funds, Sheriff's Department.
Moved by Jerry, second by Tom. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Authorizing agreements between Social Services and County Law Department.
Moved by John, second by Ron. Got the deer in the headlight up there. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Authorizing agreements between Department of Social Services and various providers.
Moved by Randy, second by Ron. Discussion. Ron. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Authorizing reclassification, Department of Social Services position.
Moved by Tom, second by Greg. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
To transfer funds, Social Services.
Moved by Ron, second by John. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Appointing members to Traffic Safety Board.
Moved by John, second by Andrea. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed?
I probably should have stayed.
Joe Dick abstaining, and the motion carries.
Authorizing agreements between the county and local businesses to lease advertising space on Lewis County Public Transportation bus.
Moved by Ron, second by Tom. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Resolution 415, authorizing agreement between the county and New York State Department of Motor Vehicles for use of East Road premises for CDL testing.
Moved by Andrea, second by John. Discussion.
Thought you were using the parking lot up to the idea.
They sold that
So
building.
is this why this is being, so my question is why couldn't we have gotten this approved years ago when we were fighting with the state about a place to put it?
Because I think the climate's probably a better place, but we don't have.
Yeah, I realize that, but we.
It's the JCC parking lot, Brian.
Yeah, okay. All right.
The ACC building probably wasn't done at that time. I wasn't sure it would fit. It will fit?
Yep.
Yes, they've inspected it and actually on the line.
Okay, great.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carries. Do we have any other business? Terry has a proclamation.
Proclamation to commend Kelly Hecker, Office for Aging Director. Whereas Kelly Hecker was appointed as the Lewis County Office for Aging Director effective November 27, 2017. And Kelly has since researched and availed resources to advocate on behalf of seniors to implement beneficial and enhancement programs. Through her persistence, the quality of food and value-added nutrition of congregate and home-delivered meals was accomplished. During her tenure, Kelly collaborated with officials and colleagues from all levels of government and partnered with community agencies and businesses to implement new initiatives and programs for improved sociological impacts and overall quality of life for our senior population. Our local senior citizens have relayed their gratitude as benefactors of these expanded programs and social events which they have enjoyed. We wish to recognize and commend Kelly Hecker for her conscientious and compassionate performance, specifically for focusing on our seniors while also impacting the community as a whole. On behalf of the Board of Legislators, I, Chairman Larry Dahlhoff, hereby record our respect and appreciation for the honorable performance of Kelly Hecker as the Lewis County Office for the Aging Director and extend her best wishes in her future endeavors.
Was not expecting this. Thank you very much. Oh, that's completely.
Anyone have any other business? Motion to adjourn. Brian, second by Dick.
All around screwed up.
All in favor?
You got your letter.
Dick, if you have something you want to offer, you let her call it here.
You guys picked election night for your longest meeting